This is not a watch channel at all, but one of my favorite types of videos on YouTube to watch is a state of the collection video for people who collect watches. And I thought I'd make my own and try and tie some philosophy into it. When I was a kid, I had a Timex Expedition and I completely loved that watch. I had it on a canvas strap that stunk from my sweat and eventually just kind of broke and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. I was probably about 8 years old. And I don't know what happened to that watch, but it's definitely one of those products that got me into the hobby. And this is the watch that got me back into the hobby in around 2018. This is a Zinn 556i. I learned about it through the Urban Gentry watch channel with TGV. I was trying to figure out what watch to buy, just trying to do some research on the different watches that are out there. It's kind of like a go anywhere, do anything watch because it's just a really sturdy piece of German engineering. It has really good water protection, and the price at the time was really awesome for what it was, with it being under $1,000 at the time. A big part of me was just kind of utilitarian and thinking, oh, I could get all of these different specifications for a really good price. But as a first watch, it's really cool as well because it's a mechanical watch and you can actually see the movement in the back, which I think for a lot of newer watch collectors is a really nice feature. Another watch that I had around 2010 is I bought a Citizen Eco Drive, and one of the things I like about either solar watches or these mechanical watches is that they don't really have a battery that needs to be replaced on a regular basis. And I thought that was super cool, especially with my environmental background of not liking products that are designed to break. So this was the first watch and I bought it around 2018. I was just doing initial research watching the Urban Gentry, and I'll put this over here. And I really liked the vintage watches a lot more than some of the more modern watches like the Zinn. But it seemed like a very risky thing to do, to buy a used watch online, especially one that was super old. I bought this Leonidas probably about a year after the Zinn that I bought, and I really wanted the moon phase complication. This is a triple date, so it also has the day of the week here. You have the month next to the day of the week to the right of it, and then around the outside of the dial you have the day of the month. So today's the 19th, so it's indicated as 19 down there. This is a solid gold watch, and part of the reason why I was interested in it is because you can get watches that are worth their weight in gold for less than the price of the gold that it's manufactured with. And it was kind of cool when I bought it online. I got it on Chrono24, and the people I bought it from gave me a backstory of the guy who initially owned the watch, who was a quality control guy in agriculture, but he passed away and didn't have any other family, so he gave it to these family friends and then they sold it. But this one definitely does not have a display case back, just a solid back. And I don't wear this one too much. I kind of have to find excuses to wear it because I don't dress that fancy all the time. I don't wear proper dress clothes too often, like a suit and a tie. So I kind of have to get creative when to wear this watch. But the fact that I have a watch from 1956 is another testament to why I got into watches in the beginning, which was to buy something that could last a lifetime. And you know, you can go into this watch and replace parts of the movement and get it working again. And I just find that amazing, and I wish more products were able to do this. So a lot of the watches that I have are inspired by the urban gentry. And this next watch was definitely one that was inspired by watching that YouTube channel. This is the Tudor Black Bay Smiley, and it was the first version that came back into production after it was discontinued for a while. And I guess it's kind of a collector's item now. I like it because I do like the flower brand symbol there instead of the shield. I'm not a big fan of the shield. It also has the Tudor rose on the side of the watch there. This one is a chunky beast for me. And ever since this one came out, they've produced a lot smaller versions. I thought I really wanted the blue version of this because at the time I really didn't wear black all that often. But yeah, it's a pretty large watch. I initially also wore it a lot on different NATO straps, but I recently come to really like it on the metal bracelet. I did buy this used around 2020, I would say like around 2019. Definitely more expensive than the other two watches that I have, but buying it used was not terrible. I got it about half of the retail price of a new Tudor Black Bay. And it's funny, at the time I thought that women would care about watches that a guy wears. So I was like, oh wow, I got this like luxury Swiss watch that all of a sudden would show women how wealthy I am, because I just came into a little bit of money at the time I started earning money in my job. So I don't know, I just had this weird assumption that a woman would care about the fact that I have a nice watch. And over the years of watch collecting, you realize that that's completely out of touch with reality. Most women don't care what watch you're wearing, and you really should just buy the watches because you like them rather than trying to impress other people. But yeah, this is a Swiss watch. The Leonidas is also a Swiss watch and was brought into the Tag Heuer umbrella before the quartz crisis happened. And then the Zinn is a German watch. So you got a lot of different European countries represented here. And my next watch is a Yema, which is a French brand. So we have Germany, Switzerland, and France being represented here. And this one, I wanted to have a chronograph in the collection and was looking for one that was a smaller size because I do have a smaller wrist size. So most chronographs tend to be a little bit larger because of the complications of the movement. This is a Yema Speedgraph, which is a mechanical movement. A lot of their movements are more affordable in quartz, but this is a limited edition. This is number 181 out of 200, so only 200 of these out there in the wild. I kind of regret getting this watch because now that I think about it, I think I'd rather just have a quartz movement. I did have to get this movement serviced already. I bought this during the pandemic sometime, and it was not cheap to service. And my Citizen Eco Drive that I had that was stolen from me at one point when my house was robbed, that was just a simple solar quartz movement and a lot less to worry about in regards to that. But I always loved solar power. I think that solar is such an exciting technology. That's kind of the rule that I go by in collecting watches. If I am going to get quartz, it has to be solar quartz. And speaking of solar, this is my NASA edition G-Shock. So I know a lot of people, a lot of watch collectors have to have G-Shocks in their collection. Definitely another urban gentry recommendation. It also has this National Aeronautics and Space Administration text on the side and the American flag here. It also has a cool spaceman on the back of the watch. All cool features. Kind of interesting, you know, when you look at products like this online and then see them in person and then actually figure out when to wear them, because the bright orange is a kind of a difficult thing to work into your daily wardrobe. So it doesn't get worn as much as I'd like, but I have used it very regularly because I started meditating in probably around 2022 when I got this watch, and would use the timing feature to time my meditations. I didn't like using my phone just in case someone was texting or calling and would distract me from the meditation. With this, I would just turn on the alarm. It's set to 30 minutes, which is my standard meditation time now, and just wait till that goes off. I actually wore this to a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat around 2024, and it was the only watch that I brought. And so I definitely, with those meditation retreats, you're meditating for 10 hours a day, and you spend a lot of time looking at your watch and waiting for the next meditation. And time is just a really interesting element of a meditation retreat like that. So I definitely have a lot of memories associated with that, associated with this watch. And it's kind of cool to have a NASA related watch and then use it for meditation, because of the idea of meditation being kind of like a spacey thing to do, and then the watch being kind of spacey. But I'm not really a huge space nerd. I just I don't know, I really decided that I absolutely needed to have this watch, and then struggled to find occasions to wear it. Right before the meditation, I put myself on a wait list for this Rolex Datejust. I never really fell in love with any Rolex watches before this, in the sense that I was willing to pay the price to get the watch. But that's kind of how this hobby is. It's a slippery slope. And I discovered this watch somewhere around 2024 as well, and thought it was like the perfect Rolex for me. I love plants and nature, and I just love the look of this watch. A lot of my personal decisions around watches have to do with aesthetics. I just really have to love the design of the watch, and I just thought the palm fronds on the dial of the watch were super cool. And it's pretty interesting because I put myself on the wait list for this right before the meditation, and then I spent a large portion of the meditation just thinking about this watch and getting really excited about getting it, which not what you're supposed to be doing while you meditate. And it's just kind of interesting. Part of the appeal of meditation is just like realizing what types of distractions your mind likes to focus on. And it was pretty interesting because, if you're out in the wild, people who are in this hobby tend to look out for watches of other people, and there were some really kind of heavy hitters out there in the meditation retreat. But I think I'm going to do another video about Vipassana meditation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that then. Rolex is also a really interesting brand to me. It's interesting how many people are obsessed with the brand and how influential it is over the entire watch industry, and whether that influence is merited because they just have amazing designs, or are they just really good at marketing and influencing people and generating interest in their product. Not sure what that is, but I'm definitely a victim of the marketing, I guess. I didn't end up getting the Datejust at retail price. The watch was discontinued before the AD could provide me with a watch. I did get laid off from my job after 10 years and decided to buy the watch on the gray market at double the retail price. But I just love the watch so much I had to have it, I guess, and I don't really regret doing that. For a while after the Rolex, I didn't really have too much motivation to buy another watch, but one of the things I didn't like about my NASA G-Shock is that I just had trouble finding occasions to wear it. And I saw this matte black G-Shock Square on Reddit and completely thought it would fix that gap in my collection, I guess you could say. I thought it looked really awesome, and that's as simple as the decision was. And I picked this up maybe 2 months ago. It has this matte black coating over stainless steel, so unlike the rubber G-Shock the orange rubber G-Shock that I have for NASA, this is actually stainless steel. And G-Shocks are really designed to be beat up a lot, and I thought it would be a really cool watch to have for that purpose and to wear it a lot, because the coating will get rubbed off over time, and I think that'll be an awesome look as the stainless steel underneath the coating gets exposed. That's definitely another TGV related influence on my thought process, which is kind of interesting how much like YouTube influencers can kind of shape the way people think if you just follow them for long enough. But yeah, definitely have been wearing this a lot more than the orange NASA G-Shock that I have, just because black just goes with everything, right? It's also a solar G-Shock, and it has a Bluetooth connectivity, which is kind of interesting. And that's the last watch that I purchased though. So this is where I stand now. I have these 7 watches. So what is my next step for watch collecting at this point, or where do I stand? I found myself lately kind of yearning for the days in which I just had that one Citizen Eco Drive watch. I even spent a lot of time trying to track it down. It was not easy to track down that watch, and I tried and gave up trying to find it on previous occasions, but I did track it down, and there was one available that I could buy, and I just decided not to buy it. And I don't know what the motivation is to slim everything down to one watch. It can be a liability to have all of these different expensive watches. You know, I was raised poor, and I'm used to being around poor people in poor communities. And now when I think about where I travel and where I live, I have to think about, okay, is someone gonna notice the Rolex that I'm wearing, or if they were to steal the entire collection, it would mean that I lose a pretty significant amount of money. And sometimes I feel guilty about concentrating this much on watches when so much is going on in the world. Like, I think morally it would have been a lot better for me to take all the money that I spent on these watches and put it into a charity instead, obviously. It's also kind of exhausting, all the saturation of YouTube videos about watches. I'm kind of getting tired of the same videos making the same points about watches nowadays. But on the flip side, it is nice to concentrate on watches. I went through a phase where I didn't want to watch any YouTube videos on watches, but when I started making my own videos on YouTube and really exposing myself to a lot of these heavy topics, I found that I would intentionally seek out videos on watches just to take my mind off of all of the heavier things that I've been concentrating on. Things like climate change, artificial intelligence, and the loneliness epidemic. Things seem really crazy, so it's kind of nice to escape and think about watches instead. But I think generally in life, you just want to find the right balance in regards to escapism. Whatever your strategy is for escaping the world, just try to make sure that it doesn't overwhelm your ability to concentrate and try to fix what's wrong with the world. I'm also not sure if watches really represent who I am anymore. At some point I would like to live on an off-grid homestead, and you know, having some of these luxury watches I don't think would fit in that environment. Also, if I focus more and more on political change and I'm walking around with a Rolex, it might seem a little bit hypocritical to talk about fixing the wealth inequality gap between the rich and the poor. But that's also kind of a misnomer or misunderstanding of wealth inequality, because a lot of the people in the upper 1% will probably look at a Rolex as not really that impressive in terms of the price, and there's an entirely different level of watches out there that are suited for the billionaire class. So, you know, some people might think of Rolex as being a watch that only the 1% would wear, but in reality, it's kind of an upper middle class watch. In regards to what's next for me in terms of watch collecting, I really definitely have no watches that I'm thinking about buying, except for maybe that Citizen Eco Drive. I think, you know, if you've seen my ethical wealth video, I am investing in the stock market, and I do have investments in some companies that could kind of explode in value over time. And if I did make a lot of money investing in those companies, I would consider a Vacheron Constantine 222 in solid gold, but I would have had to make a lot of money there. But that's it. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. Hopefully it's somewhat clear how this relates to the general niche of my channel, but in reality it doesn't really match that well. I just wanted to make a video about my watch collection, and I hope you'd enjoy it. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one.